prices here for 5 different brands, 3 different model levels. And then this particular model will go through and it will allow them to select all kinds of things, and eventually we'll tell them what their payment is, and then we'll use that payment to look some other stuff up. We'll get there. There'll be a number of things they get to do along the way, and those selections that they make are, for the most part, they're going to be made with form controls. And it's going to be our way of just introducing form controls. I mean, that's the big thing here. So there are the automobiles. They will get to decide if they have a trade-in or not, and there's these the parameters for what the trade-in could be from $3,000 to $6,000, $100 increments. The down payment's going to be a percent if they decide between 1% and 10%. The down payment is based off of a net sales price, meaning the sales price minus the trade-in amount. Okay. Everybody has to pay taxes. Fees and charges are in there. We're going to allow them to play around with interest rate and term. Here are the parameters of the interest rate and term choices that they'll be able to play around with. So that, we will have to keep looking back at that. In fact, I've got it right here, because we'll have to keep looking back at this to get these numbers out of it, because these are the tasks that we're going to accomplish today. Okay, today's tasks will be a bunch of form controls. So we'll be going through all of this. That's a good breaking point, because when we come back on Thursday, then we'll create a VLOOKUP table and use it. We already know how to do that, but we'll create one and use it. Then we'll learn about 1- and 2-way tables, do some conditional formats and some other things. Okay, but these are the big tasks for today. Okay, and here's our worksheet for today. So I printed a picture so that I will put things in the same spots, because as we do different cell references, if you have them and then you go and you compare it to the finished file, I wanted it to be in the exact same place it is on the finished file. So I really wanted to match that up as well as I could, and well, frankly, my memory's just not that good, and so I printed it out so that I will put things in the cells in the places that they're supposed to be. That'll just make it a little easier for all of us. Of course, I forgot to bring that to my 10 o'clock class, so I was going to have to go sort of off of memory in my 10 o'clock class of where I thought I positioned things before. You guys are in good shape. I've got the picture with me now. Okay, so here are the tasks. I could keep switching over to this if you want to see it, but you could do that as well. We're going to start by putting in a combo box. We're going to then put in an option button. So we're going to be allowing the user to select first the brand, and then they're going to select the model. Okay, so these form controls are on a ribbon, a toolbar ribbon called the developer tab, developer ribbon. A lot of you don't have that on right now, do you? Okay, so where you have to go is to File, Options. So go into File, Options, and choose to customize your ribbon, and that by default is typically not on. So that little checkbox beside developer is probably not on. So go ahead and turn that on, and then you will have this ribbon.
Will that save it for all your Excel files in the future, or just this one? Which one do you guys?
Probably this. No, I don't know. I think when you turn it on, maybe it stays on. But, yeah, good question. I don't know. So here's where we find all those interesting little things. Oh yeah, Mac users. Don't know if I can help you on that. Was that sort of in the same place?
No.
Did Mac users find it? No. Has a Mac user found it? Oh, form controls. They're called form controls. You have to search it.
Did you get to teach us?
Here's where PC people, on that developer ribbon, this little control, you got a little box here that says controls. And one of them looks like a little toolbox and says insert. Okay. Those right there, okay. I just want you to be really aware of this. The first 2 rows where it says form controls, those are the ones we're using. Right below that, where it says ActiveX controls, those are ones we are not using. And if you by accident choose one of those, it's not going to work the way that I'm showing you. Okay, so don't by accident choose one from the bottom 2 rows. Make sure you choose from those top 2 rows. They're the regular form controls. All right, so while I was killing time, did the Mac users find it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Excel, then preferences, and then it'll say ribbon, and scroll to developer.
Okay, everybody Everybody got that? Was anybody still searching for it? Mac? Excel preferences.
And then it'll bring up like that option.
Right.
And go from there.
Ribbons. Okay. Okay. Okay, so the very first one it told us to do was use a combo box that, and what they call it a combo box. This is what it does. It gives you a little drop-down list, and we want the user to have a drop-down list of all the brands of cars from which they can select, okay? So combo box on ours is that second one over right there. In the first top row, second one over says combo box. Oh, you know what? Before, don't click it yet. The combo box doesn't have text associated with it. So if I want to explain to somebody what they would be doing with that combo box, I'm just going to have to put text in myself. So I am going to go up here to B3 and I'm going to say select the brand. I'm supposed to put it, but it's going to be a lot more descriptive to the user if I go ahead and put that in. Okay. So I forgot. The combo box does not have text associated with it. So therefore, anything you need the user to know to do, you have to tell them to do, okay, in a different way. So now let's pick the combo box. Okay, when I select this combo box, I can now draw it out like wherever I want it. So like I just did that. I just clicked and drug that combo box out. It does absolutely nothing right now because we haven't done anything to it other than put it there, okay? So there it is. If I just clicked on it, again, it does absolutely nothing. Every single form control that you put in, you have to define. You have to explain it. You have to tell what its parameters are if it needs parameters. You have to set it up, okay? It doesn't just magically know what you want to have in that combo box, that drop-down list. Now, the other side of this is we're always going to have to, you know, that will eventually be a drop-down list that'll have all the brands of cars in it, right? And the user will select one, right? We're always, with every form control, going to have a place where we capture what the user has selected, okay? Because they're using the form controls. They're selecting a brand. They're selecting a model. They're selecting trade-in or not trade-in. We're always going to have a place to capture that. So here's how this worksheet is going to be set up. Everything I put over here would be what the user would see, okay? Typically, where you capture it, all the behind-the-scenes stuff would not be on the same sheet, okay? Except for class purposes, we need it on the same sheet. Otherwise, you know, it's a little difficult for us to teach this in class. So everything you see over here, okay, there's the table that you just saw in the PowerPoint with all the 15 different, you know, sales prices. Everything I put over here would be like something that was behind the scenes on another sheet, that's another worksheet that's hidden and the user doesn't have any access to it. You know what I'm saying? It would all be, this would all be behind the scenes stuff, and this will all be stuff the user is seeing. Okay? Okay. So, knowing that I'm going to have to capture that information behind the scenes, it would be helpful to me if I would specify an area for it to be captured and label it, otherwise I won't know what I'm doing. So I am going to type over here brand and model, so that brand and model, I will be able to capture their choices over here, okay? Behind the scenes, I capture their choices. Okay, again, this thing doesn't do anything yet. All I've done is put some text in here, some text in here, and I created a combo box that does not do anything yet. Okay? So I need to right-click on it, and in my choices there at the bottom it says format the control. In other words, set it up, define it, do what needs to be done to make it work. Okay? So I'm going to format this control, and this box is going to pop up. There are way more things that you could learn how to do with form controls that we aren't going to do. We're just learning how to use them in a sort of a basic form. And so we're never going to go to any of these other tabs and tweak them and do all those sorts of things to them. We're just going to learn how to make them work, okay? Just the basics. You can add the bells and whistles later. So we'll always be on the tab that just says control. And what's on that tab depends on what kind of form control it is. Depends on what it is you're trying to do. For instance, a combo box needs to know the input range, because remember, what's the combo box going to do? It's going to drop down choices for you. So it needs to know what choices is it supposed to drop down. Well, those, right? There. Okay. I want it to drop down. Toyota, Honda, Acura,
Right.
Nissan, Ford. I want that to drop that down for me. So
Right
that's,
inside of it.
on this control, that's what we call the input range. That produces my drop-down list. Okay. And the other thing that I said we will always have to, every form control has this, we will always have to capture the user's response, and where you capture the user's response is called a cell link. Okay? That's where you capture the user's response. You know where I'm going to put that? In my behind the scenes area, right next to my label that says brand, so I'll know what that is. You know, if I hadn't labeled it, I wouldn't know what I was capturing. Okay? But that's going to be my cell link right there. For me, that's 011. You're putting everything in the exact same places. Okay? Now, I don't know, drop down lines by default comes up 8. I don't really need 8, I only need 5. It's only going to have 5 anyway, because that's all the text there is, but I'll change it.
So what is cell link to?
The cell link is what captures the user's response. And I have to have a place that I capture it. So I'm going to choose to capture it in my behind the scenes area right here. That's where I'm going to capture their response. You'll see in just a minute when it works. But okay, so I click OK. I have set this up to work now. Now it works. There's my choices. They come from the input range. If I choose one of these, watch what shows up over there. If I choose Toyota, it doesn't say Toyota over there. Notice what it says. If I chose Acura, it would say 3, Nissan, 4. So it's not capturing the text of what that option is, it's capturing its numeric location. That's useful to us, we'll see in a minute, but it's useful to us that it's capturing its numeric location. Okay, so it's capturing 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, in this case if we have 5. Okay, so far so good? Okay. Now I would say that right now, if I was going to be setting this up for a real user, and I now wanted them to select their model, I would likely do the exact same kind of form control that I did for brand, because why would I confuse my users, right? I would have continuity to what we were working on and doing. But I'm not setting this up for a real user, I'm setting this up for a classroom example. And so for a classroom example, I'm going to do something different so that we get a sampling of other types of things. Yeah?
My combo box doesn't have the control section.
And you're not on a Mac. Oh, you did the ActiveX one. Do you take it out, delete it? I think you chose the ActiveX. And Kit will help you. And Kit, I think he chose the ActiveX one. If he chooses the right one, it will have it. Yeah, the ActiveX one's not going to have the same things if you choose the wrong one. Okay, so when I'm doing this for classroom purposes, so we're getting like a smattering of all different kinds of things. This isn't really the continuity you might do if you were really making this for a real life user, but it's perfect for a classroom example. So our instructions say, use 3 option buttons inside of a group box to allow them to select the model of the car. Okay. First thing I've got to put in is the group box itself. So the group box is on that second row, it's the first item. Clicked on it. You've got to make this big enough that you're going to be able to get everything in it that you need to get in it. So that's kind of how big I'm making mine. Yes?
On the Mac, I don't see.
You don't see something called group box? Did you found it, so you can show her where it is. Okay. Real quick, just a real quick note, remember when you go to take the quiz, you're going to be on the first floor of CBB in the same room we took the first quiz. You're going to be on a Windows computer. Okay? If you want to start setting your stuff up now, because eventually you have to have it anyway, and you want to do the boot camp parallels, whatever, where you can run the Windows version of Excel, now might be a good time. It's your call on that. I mean, you'll be able to do everything, but understand it's going to be in different places, and then when you get over there, it's going to be a Windows computer that you're taking the quiz on. Okay, so just a quick little thing, but you can set it up if you want to. All right, so there's a group box. The only thing I'm going to do to this group box right now is that I'm going to go in and I'm going to edit its text because I don't want it to say group box 2. I want it to actually say something like select the model. I mean, I just wanted the text to obviously be descriptive of what I'm asking them to do as opposed to saying group box.
Did you right click directly?
I right click to edit the text. I right click to edit the text. It said edit text and it took me into there. So what I'm doing inside that group box is putting in 3 what the Windows version calls option buttons, but in the old days we used to call them radio buttons, and I think on the Mac it still calls them a radio button. Okay, and this is what it is right here, the round circle, which I think on the Mac they still call a radio button, and we used to for years call these radio buttons, but now they're calling them option buttons. Before you even start putting this in, let me tell you a little trick about this. You have to get all 3 of these option buttons fully contained inside of the box, not overlapping the edges and not overlapping each other. Because if they overlap the edges of the box or they overlap each other, this won't work well. Okay, it won't work correctly. Yeah. You'll see in just a second. It groups these things that are inside of it and makes them one control. You'll see how that works in just a minute.
So they need to overlap the set, like, so the columns in rows, or?
Well, okay, so I've made a big enough space here, and watch what I do next. Okay, I choose this option button. I do not let it overlap the box. It has to be fully and completely contained within the box. Okay? Now I'm going to do a second one, and it has to be fully and completely contained within this box without touching the other one. And I do that 3 times. Do not let that overlap this. Do not let it overlap the thing before. Okay. They won't work if you do. I want to fix this text. If you don't want to do that right now, you don't have to do that right now. That's obviously something you could go back and do later, but for me right now it stalls out a little bit of time while you guys are creating your option buttons. So I'm going to fix this text to say base model. This one's going to say mid-priced model. And this one is going to say premium model. Okay.
How do you like change the name after you already made the box?
Right click it and say edit the text.
It doesn't let you do that without like pressing, like without like actually. Never mind.
No, I know what you're saying because it's
Yeah.
real temperamental. Like sometimes you click it one way and it doesn't go into that same box, and then the next time you do. So just go out and try it again. It's real temperamental. I've had that happen too. So.
Instead of putting it thrice, I just did Control V 3 times. Is that the same thing, or is it going to mess up the property?
Okay, I don't think it'll mess you up. In the future, I'm going to copy stuff. I'm really meticulous about group boxes with buttons inside of them because they're so temperamental. I think you're okay copying it. I really do. Okay, you'll find out in a minute, and I'll tell you what to do if it doesn't work. But I think you're okay. I'm real careful about these. These are the most temperamental of all of them. These things, putting these buttons inside of these group boxes. Okay.
Does
But
it matter?
still, oh, yeah.
Does it matter if it's like not perfectly aligned? Like yours are just, they're so neat, and mine are kind of a little like lopsided.
Well, see, there's reason for that. 1, years of practice. 2, I'm so neurotic about that kind of stuff. It like bugs me if things aren't all lined up really
So it
neat.
doesn't really
So it
affect
doesn't
the
matter.
formula
No,
at all.
and it really, for real, like you're doing this on a quiz, I totally would not take off points if your boxes were not neatly lined up. So,
But together, would be okay with the fact that long run would be like copy and paste it, because eventually that's
So, if you can get it to copy and paste correctly, and see, here's the thing about copy and pasting. If when you go to paste it, form controls don't always go right into the cell you think they're going to go into, and then if they overlap, then it's a problem. And that's why I'm just telling you, I'm meticulous about these because I know how temperamental they are. Okay, that's the only reason I'm like that about these.
Oh, it is wrong.
I am going to have, oh, I already have it. I already captured it. So here's what happened, and this was kind of your question. Why did we do the group box? The group box makes these function as one control, okay? It grouped these 3 buttons together. Because you know how radio buttons, that's what we always call them, option buttons work. You can select one, but not all of them. Or you can select one and only one. And you select another, it turns the last one off. You select another, it turns the last one off. That's very different than a checkbox. A checkbox, you get multiple checkboxes on or off inside of anything. But this makes these work together as a group. And you have to have it for these buttons. I mean, because that's the purpose of these type of buttons, is that it's multiple options from which you can only choose one. That's why you do these, okay? So, as such, when I go to format this, I can select any one of them to right-click on because they've become one control, okay? So I can go into this and I can right-click on this and say format this control, and it is formatting, it's going to set up what I need to set up for all of them. Whether or not they're checked or unchecked, I don't care right now, okay? Don't care about that right now. But the thing I have to actually set here is the capture of the user's response. Okay, I have to capture which one of these 3 things did they choose. So the cell link is going to go right there, over there in my working side, right there in O12. That's going to capture their response. Okay. And if these things don't overlap and they're in this group, here's what will happen. You choose base model, it's going to put a 1 there. You choose this one, it turns the other one off, turns that one on, puts 2, puts a 3. Okay, if you are getting 2 buttons selected at the same time right now, and that's not unusual the first time you go to create these things, if you're getting 2 buttons that are selecting together, it's because something overlapped, okay? And I'm just going to tell you real quick, here's the way to fix that problem. Delete all your buttons and start over, because moving them won't do it. Okay, you think, oh, I'm going to slide this and now it's going to fix that problem. I'm going to make my group box bigger. Nope, the damage is done. Okay, delete all 3 of them and put all 3 of them back in just more carefully the next time you do it. I'm just telling you that because if that happens to you, like if it didn't happen to you today, but the day it happens to you is 2 weeks from today, is CBB 126, okay, you're going to be going, ah, okay, delete them, start over, put 3 new ones in there, okay? That's the only way to solve that problem.
But
easily.
clicking on it doesn't uncheck it, right? You have to do right click and then uncheck.
Oh, you mean, yes, because once this kind of button is in there, you can't undo it. It's not a checkbox. And so if you wanted to uncheck it, you would have to go in here and say uncheck this and click OK. And, I mean, another way to do that actually is go over here and delete this, and it'll uncheck all.
Oh.
So there's other ways to get around that, but yeah. But you're right. No, once you put something in here, you know, it's there, and you got to be selecting one of them.
So if you delete, so like in O12, if we deleted that cell, it deletes everything in that cell. So if you like accidentally backspace, you have to go back and run it into the format.
No, if I delete in this cell over here in O12, it did not in any way impact the fact that this answer to this links there. It did not get rid of that. Because the only thing that's here is just a value that has been captured by this conform control. So I can delete it, and it doesn't cause any problems, and go back over here and then select again. Yeah. Okay. Next item. Oh, display the sales price, and we're going to end up using the index function. If we haven't already done that, we're going to do it now. All right. In this, I don't care if these are exactly where mine are, but it kind of helps a little if you do, because then the formulas later, you'll say, oh, mine matches, I'm doing the right thing. But anyway, I'm going to do something here that's just all a little formatting game. You do or want to look like this, you can do it. If you don't want it to look like this, don't do it. It's not a make or break sort of thing. But in this, I'm going to merge these two cells, E8 and E9. No, hold on. I'm going to do this. Yeah, that is the right one. Good. Okay. See, going off memory, I was afraid I wasn't doing it right. I'm going to merge those 2 cells together, and I'm going to put a really nice big border around it. Why? Because it'll make the sales price stand out. That's why. I mean, that's all. I just want the sales price to stand out. I've done several other little formatting things. But how am I going to come up with the sales price? what would you do if I told you what's the sales price of a Nissan, a mid-price Nissan?
It's all references.
Yeah, you'd go over here and you'd say Nissan, mid-priced, it's $27,445. Okay, so we're going to use the table of sales prices, and we're going to use it with a function called index. And I cannot remember which classes I covered index in last time and which ones. I didn't think we got to it in this class, but here's what index does. Index will tell you the contents of a cell if you tell it where to look and the numeric location of that cell, okay? So if it's just a straight column or if it's just a straight row, you just tell it, go to this column and find the 5th one and tell me what's in there. Go to this row and find the 10th one and tell me what's in there. Or go to a 2-dimensional space and go to the row and the column and tell me what's in there, okay? And what did this capture? The numeric choice. So it didn't capture Toyota. That would have been a lot harder, to tell you the truth, if it had captured Toyota or whatever, where we are right now, Nissan or whatever. It would have been harder if it had captured that. The fact that it captured the numeric location is perfect. Because what did they choose? Nissan, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 4. Nissan. What did they choose? Mid-priced. Second column, 1, 2. There it is. That's how index works. Index takes the numeric location, goes to a range, and finds the contents of the cell at that location. Okay. So I'm going to put in index. Again, we'll do another example where I can show you where you have multiple 2-dimensional spaces, but anyway, where am I looking? The array where I'm looking, that's first. That's this. Okay. And then what do I need? Which row, which column? Because they 2-dimensional space. Which row? Well, that was the brand, Nissan. Okay. Which column? Well, that was the mid-price model, 2, right there. It's exactly what it does. It goes there, 4th row, 2nd column of that range. Okay. And tells me, not necessarily formatted well, but tells me that that's the price. Now I can format that better. Again, format as you want to, but I'll make it look like dollars at least. We don't need decimal places on it, so there we go. That's the index function.
So how is index different from the past that we've been doing to look up references?
Well, when we were looking at before, we were doing an entire VLOOKUP, is the only lookup we've done up to this point. We were doing an entire lookup in a table where we match something in the first column to find the answer in one of the successive columns. Okay, this is going in to a range that could be either a row or it could be a column. The range alone doesn't have a lookup area. Okay, it just has numeric location of where to look. I don't know if that sounds weird. But in the VLOOKUP, we had a value, we were matching it, finding an answer. Here, we know a numeric location, and it gives us what's in that cell at that numeric location. Okay. For us 4-2. Okay. What's next? Now we're going to use check boxes to let a person figure out if they're going to do trade-in and or a down payment. So there's actually going to be 2 of them. There's going to be a trade-in checkbox, there's going to be a down payment checkbox. And then we're going to have to look at the parameters to figure out how much, well, there's a lot of steps to this one. I'll just put it that way. There's a lot of steps to this one. Let's start with the checkbox. Okay. So the checkbox is right up there in the first row, that little checkbox, check in a box. It's very descriptive. Okay, pick that. I'm going to put one here, kind of in basically in B13. And I actually am going to copy it now because this one's not temperamental in any way. So I'm going to copy and then put one in row 15, which it didn't go in row 15 the way I wanted it to, so I'm going to drag it up and attempt to line it up. Okay. All right, so there's going to be my checkbox. The first one, there's so many things to do, but we'll start with fixing the text. The first one is my text box that allows them to decide if they're doing a trade-in. Trade-in, question mark? I don't want a big long phrase, so I'm just going to do short things. The second one, I'll edit the text to say down payment, question mark. I'm going to need a place to capture this as well. So I'm going to go over here and say trade-in. down payment.